The House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., April 26, 2023. I hereby appoint the Honorable Jay Obernolte to act as Speaker Pro Tempore on this day. Signed, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 9, 2023, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties with time equally allocated between the parties, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue between 11:50 a.m. this morning. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Casten, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want you to imagine that you get home from work tomorrow and you decide that you just don't want to pay your mortgage. So you call your bank and you share the good news. Now the bank at that point explains that if you don't, you're looking at eviction. So you propose a counteroffer because you're a clever fellow. I'll pay my mortgage, but only if my family stops using hot water and stops going to the doctor. At which point the bank says, you, sir, are a moron. And yet that is what is happening in the House this week. The United States government has already agreed to buy a house. We're already living in the house. We took out a loan to pay for the house, but the Republicans want to stop making the mortgage payments unless the American people agree to skimp on health care and basic services. Now, I would remind everybody in this body that it is Congress that has the power of the purse. Every dollar of government spending and every dollar of government revenue was approved on this floor by this body. If the expenses exceed the revenues, then we borrow to make up the difference. We made those choices. Now, you all may not like every dollar that we've approved. I certainly don't. I also don't agree with every dollar my wife has ever spent, and she doesn't agree with every dollar that I've ever spent, but we get by because my wife and I are functioning adults. That would appear to be too high a bar for this body. So the majority today is bringing a package to the floor that, according to Moody's Analytics, will, and I quote, meaningfully increase the likelihood of a recession. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the only way that the Speaker can keep his job. If Speaker McCarthy brought a clean debt limit bill to the floor of the House tomorrow, he would get every single Democratic vote, and I'm sure a few of my colleagues across the aisle would join in. It'd pass the Senate. President Biden would sign it. That would be that. We would move on to the important work of this country. But as all of us know who spent a long late night here after 14 failed efforts to win the speakership, Mr. McCarthy caved to the extremists in his own party and agreed to conditions where he loses his job if he does not try to blow up the economy. He has the opportunity today to do the right thing. He simply doesn't have the ability. And so, the House is now preparing to vote on a bill that would be disastrous for Americans. Let's be clear, if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we will see collapses in global financial markets. We will default on our debt, which means interest rates go up, which means everything you have that has an interest rate tied to it gets more expensive. Your mortgage, your car payment, your student loan, your credit card payments, all those things start going up. The majority is hoping that the adults in the room will prevail and that the adults will be so frightened by that consequence that we will accept their self-destructive alternative. The alternative is a bill that would slash non-defense discretionary spending by 22%. Just in my home state of Illinois, let's talk about what that means. That means 8 air traffic control centers in Illinois. Home of O'Hare Airport, hub, 8 air traffic control centers shut down. In the wake of East Palestine, the train crash, just in Illinois, we will do 420 fewer rail inspections. 2,900 students in Illinois will lose their Pell Grants. Several hundred thousand will see their Pell Grants cut. 10,000 kids will lose pre-K and child care. 53,000 veterans will lose outpatient services. That's just in Illinois. Nationally, a cleaner, cheaper future will be thrown away. And white-collar police will be defunded to make it easier for everybody to commit tax fraud, which of course will lower future revenues and make it necessary for us to borrow more money. The majority would have us believe that our only choice right now is, do we want to blow up the economy or do we want to ruin the lives of millions of Americans? That's not the only choice. We have a third option. The third option is we can let the adults come back in the room. We can take our job seriously. We can pass a clean debt limit bill. Look, governing is hard, but it is especially hard when you let the clowns drive the car. Please, Mr. Speaker, let the adults take the wheel. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Klein, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Joe Biden and House Democrats should listen to what former Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say about debt ceiling negotiations back in 2019. According to the Washington Post, Pelosi, the California Democrat, said the idea of raising the debt ceiling on its own and not in conjunction with a budget agreement was not acceptable to her caucus and therefore did not stand a chance of passage in the House of Representatives. Debt ceiling negotiations are nothing new. President Biden has a long history of engaging in and supporting negotiations over the debt limit, as do other House Democrats. House Republicans are committed to a reasonable, responsible, and sensible solution to our nation's debt crisis that would limit Washington's irresponsible spending, save taxpayer dollars, and grow the American economy. President Biden and extreme Democrats' inflationary spending spree has worked to increase our national debt to unsustainable levels, over $31.6 trillion, with annual deficits of $1.5 trillion. While Joe Biden has no plan to avoid debt default, House Republicans are committed to sensible debt ceiling negotiations. Mr. Speaker, I rise to congratulate the Stewart's Draft High School team for winning the Virginia State Future Farmers of America Forestry Championship at the Mountain Gateway Community College in Clifton Forge. These outstanding students exemplify leadership and are model representatives of the organization. The forestry competition tasks included being able to identify tree types and disorders, pinpoint wood products, as well as pass a knowledge exam and identify and navigate maps. Led by Coach William Monroe, as well as advised by agriculture teacher Lindsay Baber, these champions include freshman Kelly Weaver and seniors Anna Grace Henderson, Will Monroe, and Stephen Ramsey. As Virginia's 6th district is the #1 agriculture district in the Commonwealth, I'm always proud to see the next generation of agriculture leaders participating, excelling, and winning in competitions like this one. Congratulations to the Stewart's Draft students, Coach Monroe, parents, and staff on this well-deserved victory. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Clark County High School girls basketball team for their Virginia Class II state championship victory. These impressive young ladies stepped up big and beat the defending state champs Central High School of Wise County 45-41 for their second state title in the program's history. Junior guard Celine Good cemented the Eagles' lead by nailing a dramatic three-pointer to put the team up by 5. In the final minutes, the Eagles knocked down 10 of 12 free throws that helped seal the victory. These champions include Celine Good, Kia Williams, Emma Nelson, Devin Simmons McDonald, Kira Rohrbach, Willow Oliver, Alina McCavish, Bailey Beard, Haley Evans, and Emily Emmert, led by head coach Regina Downing and assistant Shad McCaw. Congratulations to all of these talented athletes, coaches, staff, and parents on this well-deserved state championship. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Kelly, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today because we have a gun problem in the United States. This problem has been ongoing for years, but the continued events make this reality all the more stark. Kaylin Gillis was shot and killed for turning around in a driveway, something so many of us have done. Heather Ross and Peyton Washington, 2 cheerleaders, were shot for mistakenly getting into a car they thought was theirs, something so many of us have done. Kinsley White and her parents were shot for retrieving a basketball in a neighbor's yard, something so many of us have done. And Ralph Yarl, who was shot for ringing the wrong doorbell when picking up his siblings, something so many of us have done. All of this violence, not to mention the mass shootings in Dadeville, Louisville, and Nashville this month, reminds us that going about your daily life can quickly turn deadly in this country. Death should not be a consequence for simply living our lives. And we cannot continue to look away from the thousands of lives taken by gun violence every year that barely register in the headlines. This past weekend, 17 people were shot in Chicago, including a 3-year-old from Calumet Heights and a 6-year-old from Woodlawn. The weekend before, 10 were killed and 26 wounded. 4 were killed and 21 injured the weekend before that. Whether it's from a fight gone too far, an accidental discharge, a stray bullet, or death by suicide, guns make our communities more dangerous and restrict other people's freedoms. Walking down the street or playing with your kids on the front porch shouldn't be dangerous activities. I am sick and tired of gun violence only being acknowledged in Chicago to say that gun laws don't work. This is simply not true. According to trace data from the ATF, only 49% of crime guns used in Illinois are from Illinois. Illegal gun trafficking from states with fewer gun protections make my constituents less safe. Whether it's background checks, consumer safety laws, community violence intervention, or cracking down on gun trafficking, gun safety laws work. States that have fewer gun laws have higher gun deaths. Already in 2023, 13,000 people have died because of a gun, and another 10,000 have been wounded. These numbers include homicides and suicides, mass shootings, and daily gun violence. One thing these incidents all have in common is that access to a firearm made them more deadly. This is a public health crisis that is painfully American. Unlike our peer countries, life expectancy in this country is not rising after the worst of the pandemic has abated. Life expectancy continues to decline because our young people are dying, and too many of those deaths are from guns. And the data shows that violence begets violence begets violence. More violence means fewer job opportunities, fewer education opportunities, and fewer opportunities to build a healthy family. The solution is not cutting Social Security, not cutting Medicaid, not adding onerous work requirements, not cutting school funding. The solution is better gun safety laws, and we must invest in our communities to stop the cycle of violence. And we must dispense with the false choice between better gun safety measures and what some dare to call freedom. A constant slow-motion massacre is not the price of freedom. This is a farce. What about our freedom to go to the grocery store, to church, to go to school, to ride on the bus, to play in the park, to come out of choir practice, to get coffee from a coffee shop without fear of getting shot? No matter who they are or where they grew up, someone being shot to death is not an inevitability. They died because we failed them. We failed their family. We failed their community. Well, I'm tired of failing. We have the tools to stop this senseless violence. We just need the courage to use them. I've been fighting for stronger gun safety laws since my first day in Congress, and I'm not going to stop. I can't imagine looking at a mom who's lost her child or a brother that has lost his sister and telling them to calm down, to stop asking for something to change. We all deserve the freedom to live without fear. Thoughts and prayers are nice, but they won't save lives. Doing nothing is not an option. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Mann, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the life and legacy of Joe Kerr, a great Kansan who passed away on April 8th at the age of 64. Joe was a third-generation wheat farmer, a passionate advocate for agriculture, and a follower of Jesus who was committed to building and fostering deep relationships in the agriculture community. Wheat harvest was Joe's favorite time of year. He loved spending long hours with family and friends, racing to beat a storm, enjoying the quiet peace and camaraderie of supper time in the field, and sharing the entire experience with younger generations. He and his crew loved the challenge of trying to be the last truck to go through the elevator each night. At the end of harvest, Joe would hold court and share stories at the big Last Supper that he and his wife Gina would host at their house for everyone who came to help. Joe served on the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers Board of Directors from 2002 to 2010, serving as president in 2007 and as the president of the National Wheat Foundation in 2022. First and foremost, however, Joe was a follower of Jesus who served in the Kansas legislature, on various ministry boards, including At Stakes Ministry and church committees, and who was passionate about sharing the gospel and who led missions trips to and made many friends in Guatemala. Joe is now at rest with his Savior. To Gina and the Care family, I'm praying for you as you mourn the loss and celebrate Joe's life. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the 150th anniversaries of the Ellsworth route of the Chisholm Trail and the Western Cattle Trail through Dodge City and beyond. The American cowboys who used these trails were the original pioneers who'd ventured west in search of new opportunities with nothing more than their horses, their dogs, their ropes, and their prayers. I grew up on a cattle operation in Quinter, Kansas. There are more than 4.4 million cattle and calves on ranches and feed yards in our district, which means that plenty of cowboys call the Big First home. Kansas has been the first frontier for cowboys since the 1860s, when cattle were driven from Texas to places like Abilene and Dodge City to be sold near the closest railroads. The cowboys who would drive about 3,000 head of cattle on their 1,000-mile journey at a pace about 15 miles per day, so it took 2 months. They would look after their cattle 24 hours a day, sleeping under the stars in shifts in the land that would later become Oklahoma. By the late 1870s, so many cowboys were making this trek from Texas to Kansas that 500,000 head of cattle were being shipped out of Dodge City alone every year. These long drives disappeared at the end of the century, but the modern cowboys of today still embody the courage, dedication, personal responsibility, and traditional methods from their pioneering history. Cowboys remain a constant in an ever-changing world. They know how to break a horse without breaking its spirit, and they put in a 40-hour work week by the time Wednesday morning rolls around. Cowboys know that they can't take shortcuts or do the bare minimum if they want to succeed. They are resourceful multitaskers who do things the right way, which is often the hard way, and their reward for all their hard work isn't public accolades, but simply providing for their families, caring for their stock, and keeping America fed. It's exciting to see all the local celebrations of Kansas history around these trails. I thank Dennis Katzenmeyer, president of the International Chisholm Trail Association, Michael Grauer, president of the Western Cattle Trail Association, Ron Wilson, and many others for their dedication to preserving the history of these trails and the cowboys that use them. And Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and thank Emily Woods for her service to me, my office, Kansans, and the Big First District. Emily served on my team since my first day in Congress, and she consistently brought a caring, professional, and attentive approach to building relationships, providing thought leadership, and connecting with Kansans and her co-workers alike. Emily established herself as a resource for everyone in the office, always offering helpful advice and solving problems with a creative perspective. This scripture comes to mind for Emily, Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. I'm so excited to see what lies ahead for Emily and her move back to the Sunflower State. And I know that with her many skills, her passion, and her work ethic, she will go very far. Thank you, Emily. My time in Congress wouldn't have been the same without you. We'll miss you, and I wish you well with all of your future endeavors. Thank you, and with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Tlaib, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, today I am proud to renew our fight to designate Lebanon for temporary protected status to prevent Lebanese nationals in the United States from being forced back to the dangerous crisis facing their home country. Between the pandemic, the aftermath of the Beirut port explosion, the economic devastation, and the ongoing political crisis, Lebanon is experiencing one of the worst humanitarian crises globally, resulting in widespread lack of access to medical care, clean water, food, and electricity. According to the United Nations, Mr. Speaker, over 3.5 million Lebanese people are estimated to live in poverty, and 1.38 million people are experiencing extreme poverty. The presidency has been vacant since last October, and the Parliament just extended the terms of local officials without elections to avoid a complete collapse at the local level. And Mr. Speaker, 40% of the doctors there in Lebanon have left the country and continue seeing a huge amounts of illnesses spreading throughout on top of the pandemic. Our country must not retreat from its long tradition in providing a safe haven for those that need it the most. Temporary protected status for our Lebanese neighbors is critical to prevent more hardship. I call on my colleagues to support this legislation. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Lee Vernon Newby, Jr. He's a veteran of World War II and a longtime resident of Detroit in Michigan's 12th District Strong. He is celebrating 100 years of life. Mr. Newby is a United States Marine Corps veteran who served from April 1st, 1943 until January 8th, 1946. He served and was wounded during World War II, where Mr. Newby was one of our courageous Montford Point Marines and one of the people that was barrier breaking and becoming first African Americans to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. He fought against prejudice and hostility while serving our country. Mr. Newby Jr. proudly serves as a member of the Montford Point Marines of America, the Detroit chapter, and was awarded Congressional Medal of Honor, the highest civilian award in the nation under President Obama's administration. Please join me in commending Mr. Lee Vernon Newby Jr. for his outstanding service to our country as we celebrate his 100th birthday. With that, I yield.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Christy Griffiths Arnold on her appointment to the Cattlemen's Beef Promotion and Research Board by the USDA. Christy has been involved with farming and agriculture her entire life. She was born into a farming family, growing up on her family's 465-acre farm, which has been passed down through multiple generations. It was on her family farm that she learned the tools of the trade related to cattle farming. In addition to her recent appointment, Christy has also been awarded the Georgia Producer of the Year Award in 2010 by the Georgia Cattlemen's Association. In 2012, Christy and her family won the 2012 Wayne County Farm Family of the Year Award. In 2014, they won the Georgia Beef Quality Assurance Award. Christy has proven time and time again that not only is she one of the most accomplished and knowledgeable farmers in the district, but she's also one of the best in the country. Christy's expertise in agriculture speaks for itself, and I believe she will be an excellent addition to the Cattlemen's Beef Promotion and Research Board. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to stand with the 6.7 million Americans who are living with Alzheimer's disease, their family members, and caregivers. 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or a form of dementia. These are our sisters, our brothers, our mothers, our fathers, our neighbors, our fellow Americans who are living with this heartbreaking disease. Thanks to bipartisan efforts in Congress, we've made great progress advancing research on Alzheimer's and dementia, providing hope to families struggling with this tragic disease. However, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services recently declined to cover an entire class of FDA-approved Alzheimer's treatments for Medicare patients. This has significantly reduced access to care for our most vulnerable patients with no other options to treat the disease. Unfortunately, this administration continues to put patients last, and this decision of restricting Medicare coverage of FDA-approved Alzheimer's treatment is just the latest example. I ask my colleagues to join me in calling on this administration to reverse this restrictive decision and provide those living with Alzheimer's access to FDA-approved treatments. To all the patients, families, and caregivers out there who are struggling with Alzheimer's, I stand with you, and I will continue to fight for you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate the Camden County High School wrestling team on their 9th consecutive state championship. It seems like winning the state championship is just part of the yearly routine for the wrestlers at Camden County, but it was not always that way. When Coach Jess Wilder took over the program in 2006, the school had not won a state championship since 1984. Some even called Camden the land of no chance in reference to its state title aspirations. Coach Wilder and the wrestlers of Camden County did not let that discourage them, and after 2 years of hard work and determination, Camden County won a state championship in 2008. The team took championships home in both 2012 and 2015. Their 2015 win marked the beginning of a yearly state championship run that still continues today. Unbelievable. I want to congratulate the team and Coach Wilder on their hard work and determination. Continue to make your school and the First District proud. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Igna Cashon and Brittany Neerhoof for being recognized as 2024 Georgia Teacher of the Year finalists. State School Superintendent Richard Woods, who surprised the finalists with their selection throughout the month of March, said each one of them is a shining example of the profession. I could not agree more. Igna Cashon is a science, technology, engineering, and math teacher at North Tatnall Middle School. In 2020, she received the Georgia STEM Scholar Award for her efforts to integrate effective STEM education in the classroom. Brittany Neerhoff is an art teacher at McAllister Elementary School in Bryan County in the 1st District. She is also a leadership team member and chair of the Fine Arts Night Committee. I would like to congratulate Igna and Brittany for their hard work and their dedication to their students. They are very deserving of this honor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce the Raise the Age Act. This bill would protect the public by raising the minimum age to purchase semi-automatic centerfire rifles to 21 years old. Currently, the buyer only needs to be 18 years old, even though the minimum age to purchase a handgun from a dealer with a federal license is 21 years old. The Raise the Age Act would apply the 21-year-old minimum age standard to buyers of semi-automatic centerfire rifles, just as it applies to buyers of handguns. Imagine the agony that Alexandria Rubio's parents felt last May when they learned that their 10-year-old daughter's life was cut short at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. On that horrific day, 21 beautiful spirits were stolen from us, 19 precious young children, and 2 beloved, dedicated teachers. The halls of a grade school were forever robbed of their innocence due to the gruesome actions committed by an 18-year-old who used a semi-automatic weapon that he'd purchased shortly after his 18th birthday. On May 14th, 2022, 53-year-old Andre McNeil went to the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York to purchase a birthday cake for his grandson. He never returned home for his grandson's birthday due to the heinous acts of an 18-year-old mass shooter with an assault weapon. That 18-year-old ended the lives of 10 innocent souls that day. Had a 21-year-old age requirement been in place, that 18-year-old shooter would not have been able to legally purchase that firearm just a few months earlier, and the tragedy and trauma that occurred that day might have been avoided. Some of the most horrific and heartbreaking mass shootings in our history were committed by 18, 19, and 20-year-olds using assault weapons, including the massacres at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown in 2012, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida in 2018, and at Columbine High School in Colorado in 1999. According to CNN, in November 22, up to that point, at least 3,179 people had been shot in mass shootings, resulting in 637 deaths and more than 2,500 people wounded. Already in 2023, there have been more than 170 mass shootings. Some of my colleagues insist on choosing the Second Amendment over second graders. They insist on banning books in schools instead of banning assault weapons in schools. They talk about the weaponization of our government, but they're silent when actual weapons are used to lay waste to our school children. Instead of supporting common sense reforms to address our country's gun epidemic, some members offer bills that would make the problem even worse, such as eliminating the ATF, the lead federal law enforcement agency that fights against gun violence. Time and again, our communities are devastated by these mass killings. Some politicians send thoughts and prayers, but we should all remember the wisdom in Paul's letter to James that faith without works is dead. This bill alone won't fix the problem of gun violence, but we know that inaction will not stop the mass killings. The time for action is long overdue. That is why this bill is supported by many gun violence prevention organizations, including the Giffords Law Center, which observes its 10th anniversary today, March for Our Lives, Newtown Action Alliance, Community Justice Action Fund, and several others. Some major retail chains like Walmart have also even voluntarily raised the age from 18 to 21 to buy a firearm at their stores. Raising the age to 21 also withstood judicial scrutiny recently. The 11th Circuit recently upheld a similar law on the 21-year-old age requirement in Florida that was enacted shortly after the 2018 massacres in Parkland. The court determined that the Act's restrictions on the sale of firearms to 18 to 20-year-olds is consistent with the nation's relevant historical tradition of firearm regulations. Raising the age to 21 to purchase these kinds of firearms is reasonable and a crucial step, and I encourage all of my colleagues to support this vital legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Santos, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor the beginning of Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Since 1948, Israel has displayed great resilience and strength against its opposition. This incredible nation and our strongest ally in the Middle East. Our friends in Israel carry a long history of faith and resolve. Here in the United States, we are forever grateful for their friendship and their continued partnership. We congratulate you on this tremendous milestone of 75 years of independence and democracy. In the state of New York, we are proud to be the home of the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. For 75 years, Israel has been a tried and trusted ally of the United States. Together, we have Americans and Israelis united by our shared commitment to democracy, economic prosperity, and regional security. Israel is America's base in the Middle East. As the only democracy in the region, Israel is the only country that embraces American values. We have witnessed the strongest relationship between America and Israel yet, and not just in words, but in actions. The American embassy officially moved to Jerusalem. America officially recognizes the Golan Heights as part of Israel. The 118th Congress is holding strong to the commitment of allegiance to Israel, even in the face of adversity, to 75 more years of partnership. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Rhode Island, Ms. Magaziner, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I rise today to oppose the Republicans' Default on America plan that will hurt Rhode Island's seniors. The MAGA Republicans that have taken control of this House have given us a false choice. Either we go along with their plan for painful cuts for veterans, for seniors, for children, or they will purposefully wreck the economy by defaulting on the debt. This false choice is wrong, and we do not need to accept it. In particular, their plan would enact painful cuts on senior citizens in Rhode Island. How? By cutting funding to the Social Security Administration so that the 250,000 elderly and disabled Rhode Islanders who depend on Social Security would face longer wait times for their benefits. By cutting funding for seniors' nutrition programs like Meals on Wheels and housing, slashing funding for home care, putting lives at risk. And this is not about deficit reduction. If this was about deficit reduction, my Republican colleagues would be lining up to support President Biden's budget, which reduces the deficit by $3 trillion. No, this is an extreme agenda that puts working people, in particular seniors, in the backseat while doing the bidding of wealthy donors and billionaires and corporations. We do not need to accept it. People will not stand for it, and I will fight this Default on America plan with everything that I have. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Perez, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 5 minutes.